Good evening. Whew. Hey. First of all, I am absolutely honored and blessed to be sharing the stage with so many people who seem to have a real handle on vulnerability. And I think all of them are actually in a professional capacity somehow involved with vulnerability. I think what I'm learning in this very moment is all of our capacities somehow involve vulnerability. So with that disclaimer, I'm an amateur vulnerabilitist. TM. Brene Brown hasn't used that one, has she? Okay. Vulnerabilitist. And in that, I've learned so much in the last hour and a half that my story is completely shot. And so I'm just going to do my best to relay what it is I've been learning and what I'm going through. For me, I want to talk about vulnerability and leadership. And I want everybody here to close your eyes for a moment. That'll help me with my vulnerability. I want you to picture yourself in a difficult conversation in your job, in the work you do to sustain your life. And you're talking to someone in a way or in a situation that makes you completely nervous. You're worried about the outcomes, you're worried about the repercussions, you're worried that you might do it wrong. And you have two options, and your first option is to let that brick wall start building itself to protect you. And you take a deep breath. And you realize the second option is to look into that person's eyes and see the infinite universe and all the stars and everything in all existence that makes the two of you one thing. Open your eyes. You can imagine how that connection can create an amazingly powerful relationship. And so for the last 2 weeks, while I've been thinking about what this talk is going to sound like, I really didn't want to talk about relationships. And I realized that I'm always in one. And I came up through the corporate world. I was doing a great job. I knew what I needed to do. I listened to all the training I had. I was actually able to see negative situations and turn them around by growth and personal development, reflection. And I got to a point where I was actually, if I don't say so myself, doing pretty good. I was able to listen to people. I was able to take feedback. I got lots of positive feedback about what kind of leader I was. I went through the ranks, which wasn't easy because you're then leading peers. And I thought I was doing it right. And if you've seen any of, I've been on stage here at VoiceStory a couple times, and one of my talks was mental health in the workplace. And my first talk was about my life changing. So I come from a road less traveled, and in fear of completely breaking down up here and being as vulnerable as possible in front of a big group of people. I won't get into it too much, but I spent a lot of my life pretending I was confident and in control. And I didn't realize I had control issues because I was always in control. I always had it going the way I wanted to. I was the king of the party. I knew where all the stuff was. People came to me with their problems. I was able to help them all the time. I felt really good about it. I felt like I was on top of stuff. Then I got into the corporate world, and I managed to pull that off pretty good too. So I used all of that as an illusion to tell myself that I had all the different characteristics that make a good leader. And there was some bad things that happened, or some things that were challenging that made me feel bad, or no, things can't make me feel bad. Things that happened to me that helped me, that caused me to choose. No, I can't say it. They were uncomfortable. I'm learning. See, I don't even have the words. I literally sometimes don't have the capacity to express responsibly what I'm feeling, because I didn't have feelings. I was doing what I was told in the corporate world. I was using debauchery to bury emotion. And I honestly, literally, even internally, I know what's going on for me, and I know what the responsible way to look at it is, and I can't verbalize it. And I do better at work, because at work they give you a framework for it. You know what you're allowed to say, and you know what you're not allowed to say, and if you can't fit it into the thing you're allowed to say, you just don't say it. You can act on it. Anyone experience that? I see one nodding head already. And in my relationships that are personal, especially with the ones I love, I sometimes have to retreat, or I bury it. Anyone bury their feelings? You know why you bury it? Because you're actually making the bricks for the wall, right? And I'm consciously aware that my inability to be vulnerable actually causes this thing that I'm starting to call involuntary vulnerability. TM, if no one's used that one before. And what involuntary vulnerability, I need a new name for it, it's hard to say. What it is when you get yourself in a situation where you're actually doing the things you think that will protect you, so you don't have to be vulnerable. And what's the outcome of those things? More vulnerability. That's right. But not the vulnerability that you choose. And what I've been learning is that, well, I actually just learned about 25 minutes ago, it's someone else's thought. That vulnerability is completely about the connection. And thankfully for my relationship, I just realized that. In the workplace, you kind of think you can't make those connections, because anyone here actually ever stared into the eyes of a coworker and seen the infinite universe? No. So I think I'm on top of the world. I've got my package together. I know who I am. I'm a leader, and I'm doing good. And I'm almost overcoming the challenges of debauchery, almost. And then at the end of 2015, something really crazy happened. I started dating a single mom. And you probably don't know how hard that is. I was used to dating multiple moms. Thank you. That's it. You're like, should I laugh at the joke? It's probably really hard being a single mom, and I don't want to disrespect her. I get it. That's good. Thank you. I'm glad you're thinking all of those things. I use humor to cover up vulnerable spots. That wasn't a joke. Because I'm learning to process in this moment and be present for this moment, which is difficult for me, because I too was taught I had to be a strong man. And when you don't have a full spectrum of emotion at your disposal, it usually comes out of the two things you know, and I'm extremely gregarious and happy and fun sometimes, if I don't say so myself. And other times I'm angry, quite angry. And I was joking about dating a single mom, but my partner is an exceptionally patient and kind and fiery and very well learned and educated on emotion and processing. And she's also a super, super tough person to be with when you're me. And the reason is because I'm a control freak, and that's a subconscious thing that's been happening my whole life, but I didn't know because I was on top of the world. And so now I have a stepson and I have a son, and what I've learned through them is a few different things. A different way to communicate. You can't control kids. It just backfires. And I realize you can't control anyone. That's actually a thing. But you can't control kids. Adults won't always let you know how it feels, and you don't always see the results. But you got to talk to kids differently. So I was really good at listening in my office. And The difference was I knew what the end game was. But when you want to really listen and be present for a human, there's no one better to learn from but children, because they're completely innocent. They don't usually have much more motivation than something fairly simple. And also, every time they speak, you can learn from them. And one of the things that really hit me about an earlier presentation, it was actually something Chris said, and I realized in that moment that in my good times, I love the beauty of the truth of my partner. Depending on what day you catch me, teasing me might be the best way to end whatever's happening in a laughing kind of funny way, and then we're all talking about what's going on. Or it might be the worst way because I'm hungry or worked badly or whatever it might be. And so thank you for that, always, my love. And then I try to think about how to put that back at work, right? So hopefully it hasn't gone this way yet, but I'm trying my best not to turn into verbal emotional vomit. Is that what you said? Emotional vomit? Because a lot of realizations are happening tonight that I think I've known subconsciously and I'm trying to work through. And when you apply it back to work, it's a whole different animal. And the reason it's a different animal is because if you work for somebody else, you're paid to be there. And there's a certain set of parameters, certain objectives you need to be reaching. And I'm still trying to figure out how to continue through those parameters and objectives without losing the connection. Because if someone else is not connected, or if you're not connected, you're not loving what you're doing. If you can be connected to something, as I've learned through my family, there will always be love. And you got to find that love for yourself first. And you have to understand where your self-love comes from. And that'll allow you to be open to the love you need to receive as well. Like Anita at the beginning of the night, I've been kind of writer blocked or speaker's blocked about this whole topic, and my partner joked, "Oh, are you feeling vulnerable about speaking about vulnerability?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess I am, yeah." And we were texting, so I blurped out a whole bunch of stuff I was feeling, and she's a great sounding board. And she said, "What I'm hearing is that you're afraid that people won't treat you with all of the things you want to offer them." And my first reaction was a couple of bricks got put down. Right? I'm just, yeah, okay, that's good. I know you're right. And I said, I didn't say any of that in the last part I said. You said you heard that, but then I went back to look at it, and yeah, I don't have the trust. And in those situations where I can't bring myself out to be open, I don't have the connection. And I think we've heard it a few times tonight, the number one way to create connection is through vulnerability. And to close off, vulnerability in leadership is about the courage to make a connection without holding on to the outcome. And I'm going to work on that, and maybe I'll get another chance to tell you how it goes.